He said something that most people in his position would never say. He said, "The real dream is to win the World Cup. My dream was never to win the Ballon d'Or. That is just a personal ambition." Think about what it takes to say that. He is one of the most individually gifted footballers who has ever lived. The Ballon d'Or, the most prestigious individual award in football, is something most players spend their entire careers dreaming about. And Mbappe said, that is just a personal ambition. The real dream is bigger, collective, historic, permanent. That distinction between personal achievement and lasting legacy is the psychological foundation of everything Kylian Mbappe has ever done. And today we are going to break down exactly what it means. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to PsyWealth, Richie. Today we are talking about one of the most fascinating psychological profiles in world football right now. Kylian Mbappe. Not just the speed, not just the goals, the mind, the ambition, the clarity of purpose that has driven him from a suburb of Paris to the biggest stages in the world, and the lessons it contains for anyone who has ever wanted something larger than themselves. If you are new here, subscribe. Now let's get into it. Kylian Mbappe Lotin was born on December 20th, 1998, in Bondy, a suburb in Seine-Saint-Denis, one of the most economically disadvantaged areas in France. His father, Wilfred, was a football coach at the local club AS Bondy. His mother, Faiza, was a former high-level handball player. Sport was the language of his household, and from the very beginning, from the earliest age anyone can remember watching him, Kylian carried something that his physical gifts alone could never explain. A clarity, a sense of exactly who he was and exactly where he was going that most people spend their entire lives searching for and never quite finding. He said, like the greats, you want to make your own story yourself and not be a copy of another. He said that at 19 years old, after winning a World Cup at an age when most people are still trying to figure out what they want to study, and he meant every single word. Here is what makes Mbappe psychologically unique among the generation of elite footballers currently playing. He said, "Guys, ambition requires discipline, otherwise it becomes noise." That single sentence contains an entire operating philosophy, because most people have ambition, genuine, burning, powerful ambition. They want things, big things, significant things, things that would genuinely change their lives. But their ambition exists primarily as a feeling, an emotion that rises and falls depending on their mood, their circumstances, their most recent win or setback. Mbappe's ambition is different. It is structural. It is disciplined. It is converted daily, consistently, without exception, into the specific behaviors that move him toward what he wants. He said, I try to work to improve myself every day, and I try to do on the pitch what I do during the training sessions. That connection between what you do when no one is watching and what you produce when everyone is the most fundamental principle of elite performance. And Mbappe has been living it since he was a teenager at AS Bondy. I want to spend time on something. Mbappe said that I think reveals more about his psychology than anything else he has ever shared publicly. He said, the personal stats are good, but the collective is better. And then separately, the most important thing is to win the Champions League, because you can win the Ballon d'Or and not stay in history. That orientation toward collective achievement over individual recognition is genuinely rare at his level of individual brilliance. Because when you are as gifted as Mbappe, when your personal ability is so far above most of your peers, there is a natural psychological pull toward individual metrics, toward the goals scored, the records broken, the awards accumulated. And Mbappe consciously, deliberately resists that pull. He said, I want to win titles, regardless of whether I have scored or not. That is not false modesty. That is a sophisticated understanding of what actually produces lasting significance. Individual stats are forgotten. Collective history is permanent. And Mbappe has been building toward permanence since he was a child in Bondy who decided he wanted to leave a mark on the world, not just on a statistics page. Here is something Mbappe said that I find genuinely fascinating and deeply psychologically instructive. He said, Those who talk about the sacrifices they make throughout a career, I do not understand too much. For me, the real sacrifice would be getting up early in the morning to work in a job I didn't love. That reframing of what constitutes sacrifice is everything. Most people who pursue difficult goals frame the difficulty as sacrifice. The early mornings, the discipline, the things you give up to pursue what you want, they become a weight, a burden, something to be acknowledged and validated and recognized as cost. Mbappe inverts that completely. For him, the sacrifice would be not doing this. The sacrifice would be giving up the thing he loves to do, something that doesn't light him up. And that reframing and from effort as sacrifice to effort as privilege changes everything about how sustainable that effort is. Because you can sustain something you frame as privilege almost indefinitely, but you will eventually resist and resent something you frame as sacrifice. Mbappe has never framed his work as sacrifice. He has always framed it as love. And that love, that genuine burning love for what he does, is the fuel that makes everything else possible. Here is the dimension of Mbappe's psychology that most people who focus on the football never fully appreciate. He said, "The greatest are an inspiration for all the kids who wake up early in the morning. Everyone watches you, is inspired by you, and wants to be you. So you influence society. That's what being more than an athlete means. I want more kids to have that opportunity. I want everybody to start with the same chance." That is not a PR statement. That is a deeply held conviction that has shaped his career, decisions in ways that are not always obvious. His choice to donate his entire World Cup bonus from Qatar 2022 to charity. His work with foundations supporting underprivileged children in France. His consistent public acknowledgement of where he came from and who he came from it with. He understands something about influence that most people at his level of fame take years to figure out. That what you do with visibility matters more than the visibility itself. That being watched by millions is only meaningful if what they watch moves them toward something better. And that the kids in Bondy who watch him the way he once watched Thierry Henry, those kids are the real reason any of it matters. Here is something about Mbappe's preparation that I think gets completely overlooked in coverage of his career. He said, "The mind is a powerful thing. When I visualize success and see myself performing at my best, it becomes a reality on the field. And separately, visualization is a key part of my training. I imagine myself scoring goals and making a difference in every game. That is not a coincidence. That is a deliberate psychological practice that sports science has validated extensively. Visualization, the deliberate mental rehearsal of specific performance scenarios, in vivid sensory detail, activates many of the same neural pathways as the physical execution of those movements. When Mbappe sees himself scoring before the match and when he runs the specific sequence of a goal in his mind with the same intensity, he will bring to the physical execution. He is essentially preloading the pattern into his nervous system so that when the moment arrives on the pitch, the body is not executing something new. It is executing something already deeply rehearsed. At the level of the nervous system, before a ball has been kicked. And now I want to speak directly to you, because I think Mbappe's psychology contains something that applies to every single person. Watching this regardless of whether you have ever seen a football match. The first lesson is about the nature of your ambition. Is your ambition a feeling that comes and goes? Or is it a structure that you convert into daily discipline regardless of how you feel? Mbappe said ambition without discipline becomes noise. Your dreams deserve better than noise. Convert them into specific daily behaviors every single day, regardless of motivation, regardless of mood. That is the only way ambition becomes architecture. The second lesson is about what you are actually chasing. Are you chasing personal recognition, the equivalent of the Ballon d'Or? Or are you chasing something collective and permanent, the equivalent of the World Cup? Because the things that last, the things that matter when the recognition fades, are almost always the ones you built, with and for other people. The third lesson is about sacrifice. Stop framing the hard work as sacrifice. Start framing it as privilege. Because the real sacrifice would be spending your life doing something that doesn't genuinely move you. And if what you are doing does move you, then the difficulty is not sacrifice. It is simply the price of getting to do the thing you love. And that price is almost always worth paying. Kylian Mbappe grew up in Bondy with a clarity of purpose that most people never find anywhere. He knew what he wanted. He knew why he wanted it. He knew who he was doing it for. And he converted that clarity through discipline, through daily work, through a love for the game that reframes every difficult morning as privilege rather than sacrifice, into one of the most consequential football careers of his generation. He is 27 years old. He is carrying Real Madrid into the 2026 World Cup with the same burning need to win the one thing that he has always said matters most. Not the individual award, the collective history, the permanent mark on the world, the thing the kids in Bondy will remember long after the stats are forgotten. That is Kylian Mbappe. Subscribe to PsyWealth Richie. Share this with someone who has the ambition but hasn't yet built the discipline to match it. We will see you in the next one.